more impressed with the Packers or disappointed with the Texans? The
Now-
Packers beat the Texans 24-22, game-winning field goal. Former Bronco Brandon McManus saving the day.
Shout out to
I'd love
McManus.
to see that. Shout out to him for trying to save his
The
career.
Lambeau leap too. Was cool.
Now, is it weird to say this game didn't move me one way or the other? The only thing I'll say is it caught up with the Texans finally. They lost a close game. The big standout, the Packers' pass defense was amazing. Rashawn Gary finally had his breakout game, his best performance of the season. I believe four pressures or six pressures. One of the two off the top of my head, I can't remember. 6 pressures, 1 sack, 3 hurries. He had himself a great ball game. I just think that the pass defense as a whole really did a great job of getting pressure on Jordan Love and really forcing him into bad decisions or forcing him in just to get the ball away. Like you mentioned, there was no pass offense whatsoever. Why I say I wasn't moved one way or the other, either which way, because the offense, I knew that the offensive line was going to be a concern. Didn't think it would be this much. I believed in the Packers defense coming in. They went out there and they performed. Their rush defense is concerning. Joe Mixon went out there and did whatever he wanted. Shout out to Joe Mixon.
He's been
He has been a dog for them. 2 touchdowns, 4.6 a carry on 25 attempts. Really has been efficient for them. Really great signing for them. The defense for the Houston Texans, they showed out. Turnovers. They really got, for a majority of the second half, there was no offense. 7 punts combined from both of these teams. This was a defensive battle in the last 2 drives. You had the Houston Texans, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. When you needed a drive, they were able to get in field goal range. They were able to take the lead. But then you go ahead and you tip your cap to the Green Bay Packers for going out there and doing the exact same thing. I say that I'm not more moved one way or the other because I think we're starting to overlove the Houston Texans. It's because of the idea of C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, of course, when he's in there. This is an awesome team. Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. He's been more of an idea at this point. He really hasn't been that great this season.
broken fib too.
The defense has been pretty great too, but the rush defense really has what stood out. And Josh Jacobs had one of his better performances. He was really efficient with his opportunity. The pass defense, to me, I'm not a huge fan, but again, they had some big plays on Jordan Love. I'm not a huge fan of the Texans long-term this season. I think they have moves to make this offseason to refine the squad, mainly on the offensive line before they can take that next leap. Because, again, you go up against the real contenders. They're going to get pressure on CJ, force him into uncomfortable situations. And he's really great in those moments, but you do it throughout an entire course of a game, you start to see the offense unravel. And for the Packers, we've known coming in and what we've seen so far, what they were going to be. We believe that this offense would be great. Jordan Love has been a turnover guy so far this season, but he's also been a touchdown guy. And Josh Jacobs, although he hasn't been the most efficient, or outside of this game, really in the last couple of weeks, hasn't been the most efficient. He's been a positive add for them. You anticipate this offense to be great. Offensive line's been awesome. The defense, rush defense is a question for me. Pass defense definitely showed out this past week and has been really great for majority of this season. I just don't know if this game by the Packers against a team or in a game versus the Texans, where it was this close and your offense looked as sloppy as it did for a majority of the second half. So this game was impressive that they won, but outside of that, I don't know. I want to see more from them. It's a great win because you played a good team and you won. But for both of these teams, I just thought it was sloppy performances, and it's a scratch it out, claw it out type win.
I was more impressed by the Packers, and I think the Packers showcased something that they haven't showed me all season long. That Jeff Hafley is a great defensive coordinator. And all of the priors I had about this team coming into the year and projecting what this defense was going to look like with this new scheme change, now we're seeing it come into fruition. We're getting positive regression from their better players. Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary had their best days, and before this game, they were very underwhelming. But Jeff Hafley is in the school of Brian Flores when we talk about disguising and manipulating protection packages. The Texans did not know how to block these at all. And Jeff Hafley, he would have some absurd ideas. Like he would have Rashawn Gary starting from the left side and looping around the entire offensive line while another player off the edge is blitzing. And it just overwhelmed the Texans, the confusion on who to block. There was a play where they lined up 7 players on the defensive line, 4 of them dropped back, so they only ended up rushing 4. But those 2 extra rushers came from the left side. Rashawn Gary was in front of Dalton Schultz. He looped around to the left guard, and Xavier McKinney shot from the edge, and he just sacked C.J. Stroud. You have these ways where they're just opening up their defenders to get free to the quarterback. Eric Wilson, the linebacker, had 2 sacks. One of them was just 2 linebackers blitzing through the A-gap, and he just hit the center to create a lane. And then you had the other linebacker stunt around him, and the running back didn't know who to block, and now you have a hit on C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud was pressured on 51.7% of his dropbacks. It made playing quarterback unbearable. You cannot play quarterback under those conditions. They held the Texans to 55 passing yards. If Joe Mixon wants to run for over 100 and I'm holding C.J. Stroud to less than 100 yards passing, by all means. I thought Joe Mixon had some great runs, and there was some undisciplined run defense going on with the Packers. But I did feel like when the Packers honed in on the run and they said, okay, we have to stop the run and we're not going to do these exotic looks and stuff, they were really able to stop them from running the ball. In that last possession where they forced a field goal. Yep. You know, that could have been a potential ice breaking moment where the Texans just win the game if they got a first down.
I also say I was surprised they threw on 3rd down too. Milk more clock. Why did you decide not to keep running? You were really close regardless.
They probably just wanted the first down.
That's a fact, and to win the game. But Kaimi Fairbairn has been money. You go ahead and you waste as much clock as possible, take away a timeout, even though it really didn't matter. They waltzed down the field too.
It's just this defense is not just a vanilla defense like with Joe Barry last year. Soft zone, quarters, you know what you're getting. It's like, no, like we're getting after you, and we're going to get after you in multiple ways, and we're going to confuse the hell out of your offensive line and your quarterback and make you hold on to the ball 1 second longer. And that secondary is elite. I mean, Jair Alexander leads the way, but Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney at safety, that's the best safety duo in football. You can argue the Lions might be better, but I think the Packers are right up there. Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine when he gets healthy. They have Eric Wilson playing really well. Like, this team is playing amazing football. And I thought it was a dominant performance over the Texans. Like, I know that the final score was 24-22, but 16 of the Texans' points came off of Packers turnovers. One of them was a muffed punt that gave the Texans field position in the red zone. Mm-hmm. Like, when you look at the totality of this game, it's like the Packers dominated. They just had some dumb moments that let the Texans come back in this game. But for the most part, like, I look at the Packers now, and 7 scoring offense, 10 scoring defense, 5th in yards per play on offense, and 6th in yards per play allowed on defense. This defense in the second half has only allowed 22 points over the last 5 games. I think this is the best team in the NFC. And this defense, we're just 7 games into a brand new scheme. And positive regression from their best players are coming. They haven't been playing the best, like Gary and Kenny Clark. They're going to start to play better. And Jordan Love's turning the ball over, and this offense is still playing really well. Like, the throw to Tucker Kraft for a touchdown was one of the best throws of the year. And then the throw to Jaden Reed that he dropped, it was one of the best throws of the season as well. Like, Jordan Love is turning the ball over, but I trust that he's going to stop. You know, that happened last year. He just went on a streak where he just didn't throw an interception.
Right? Something like that.
He's just that type of quarterback, and that's why I love watching him play, because he's going to air the ball down the field. But this team, they have a quarterback that can ascend to an even higher level than what he is right now. I think he has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in the NFC, and by this year's end, he could be the best quarterback in the NFC. The defense is only going to figure it out more, and Matt LaFleur is an elite head coach. So I look at the Packers, and this win dominated the Texans offense like they did. I thought it showed me everything I needed to know about what type of all-around team the Packers are going to be this year. Like, they have all the bases covered. Only thing that worries me is the kicking, because Brandon McManus, he hit a game-winning field goal. That's all great and stuff, but it's funny. I saw this tweet that the Packers have been able to figure out the quarterback position going from Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love, and they can't find a Crosby replacement at kicker.
Shout out to Mason Crosby.
Let me ask you, Geno Smith or Jordan Love?
Jordan Love. He's playing right now. He's playing better. Yeah. Geno Smith is in a position that he has to play perfect every week.
He does.
And he was perfect against the Falcons.
That was a good call. It was funny because you did mention like a couple of the scoring drives Texans got were blessed, but it felt like the Packers dominated this game and they kind of like scaped by with the game-winning field goal. We mentioned Bobby Slowick earlier in the show just about kind of his struggles. This is from Ryan Heath. The Packers had 10 first and 10 plays, or excuse me, not the Packers. The Texans had 10 first and 10 plays in this game. 9 of them were run plays to start off the drives. I know the rushing attack was the one carrying in this game, right? CJ Stroud had less than 100 yards, but they became predictable at one point, right? Like, of course, Joe Mixon, you lean on him. He's been great this season when he's been healthy, but as Joel mentioned, if you're going to run with Joe Mixon and you're not going to let CJ Stroud be the top 5 MVP type quarterback we know he's capable of being, we're going to live with that. We're going to live with that because we know on the other side, we could put up points at any point during this game. I think for the Texans, it's apparent losing Nico Collins is killer. Like, losing Nico Collins, we know he's a top 10 lock receiver. He was knocking on the door of top 5. But when you take him out of this offense, the whole offense changes, right? That down threat ability that he gives you, Tank Dell has not been able to show that at all this season. He had a brutal drop on that first drive. It was a pretty easy touchdown for Tank Dell. Like, I want to catch it, but Tank Dell should catch that. Stephon Diggs, asking a lot. Stephon Diggs is not a downfield threat that he was earlier in his career. So this weapons room takes a brutal hit because Nico Collins was an elite receiver. Him and CJ Stroud had one of the best connections in football. So losing him, they were fine. You know, a couple weeks ago, they played the Patriots. Whatever. It's cool. You can put up 40 points on the Patriots. But we saw going up against a tougher defense in this Green Bay Packers, they struggled to score 19 points, right? One of those touchdowns was on a punt muff or a block punt, whatever it was. So we're really only talking about like 13, 12 points scored by your offense, sustaining drives going down the field. Bobby Slowik is definitely someone that I think everyone's looking at because this is a guy this past offseason was getting head coaching interviews. And we see one of your key pieces, again, your best offensive player outside of Stroud. I'm not going to say that's nothing, but you lose one of your pieces. If you want to be a head coach, you want to be put in that category with Ben Johnson and these top echelon offensive coordinators, we got to see something come out of this. We got to see some sort of creativity. But I think more than anything, it's been disappointing. I think one of the most disappointing players this season has been Tank Dell because, of course, the broken leg, that's brutal. That's terrible. I don't want to just like discard that and say, you know, that's not a reason why he could be struggling. But this was one of the most explosive players in the league last season. He had a 4 or 5 game stretch last year where he was outperforming Nico Collins. And we were looking at one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. He's been nothing close to that guy. He had a good week against the Patriots, but outside of that, he has not stepped up to be that wide receiver 2, even the wide receiver 3 role now that Stephon Diggs is there. So we're talking about an offense right now that is struggling, I think, from just a play calling scheme perspective with Bobby Slowik there. And your weapons room, you entered this year with one of, if not the best weapons room in the NFL. You lose Nico Collins. Tank Dell's not been playing to expectation. All of a sudden, it's Stephon Diggs as like your real wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2 you can't really rely on, and it's Dalton Schultz and kind of just a bunch of guys now. So I will say that I was impressed by the Packers, especially by this defense, because with that being said, CJ Stroud's still one of them dudes.
For sure.
Got to go out there and make plays. But the Texans are not really looking like that juggernaut, at least until they got Nico Collins back, which when he first went down, they said this could be a 6 to 8 week injury, right? This is a hamstring injury that he re-aggravated. So, of course, Nico, one of the best in the game. You're going to take your time with him. Luckily for them, they have a pretty good lead in the AFC South, so I think they can be patient. But yeah, they don't look like that powerhouse that we were expecting to enter the year.